Hello, my name's Ryan Dennis, and I'm going to read a little bit from my book Barn Gothic, 3 Generations and the Death of the Family Dairy Farm, which can be found at kennys.ie. The section's called Losing Champ. My mother bought a plastic helicopter at a yard sale for 25 cents. It was remote controlled, but still difficult to maneuver, and the battery only lasted 2 minutes. Still, every day, my father tried to fly it. The cheap toy took off in a crooked path and quickly crashed into the dog or the legs of the kitchen table. The sight of a man in his 50s refusing to put down a child's plaything produced mixed conclusions in the household. From the motivation, somewhere between finding a good Christmas present and allowing my father to redeem his childhood, I bought him a model airplane. Bright yellow and sturdily built, it was a Champ RTF, and although a beginner's model, nevertheless the real deal. The box had a young teenage boy in a checkered jumper holding it up and smiling. This, the kid, was irrefutably happy. This, I knew, was the plane for my father. He wanted to wait until summer when I was home to fly it for the first time. I read the directions and learned how to charge the batteries. The lever went one way to steer it up and down, and another to direct it left or right. A second stick controlled the speed. After the first flight, the adjustments would have to be trimmed to make sure the controls flew the plane straight. I laughed at the bolded letters inside the manual that read, "If you panic or lose control during the flight, drop the handheld remote." One summer evening, after chores, we took the Champ RTF to the top of the hill. The field was 40 acres across, and beyond that were the woods and another valley. We leaned an old 2x4 on a cement block that would be the runway for the plane's maiden voyage. I handed the controls to my father. He waved me off, as was his habit of showing restraint when he was most excited. "You can have the first one," he said. I was reluctant to agree because it was his gift, but knew there was no point in arguing. The little yellow plane accelerated up the board and took off over the first cutting with a tinny buzz. It gained altitude fast and soared over the open land as smoothly as any commercial flight, its silhouette moving across the hay in the last of the sun. Since the adjustments weren't trimmed yet, however, it spun in a circle as it rose. "Cool tricks," my father said. I gave a nervous laugh. I tried to adjust the wings like the manual said, but it seemed to have no effect. The plane continued to twist, and without my direction, climb higher. "Well, it can fly pretty far," my father said. I jammed the control lever one way, trying to curve the plane back towards us, and when that did nothing, jammed it the other way. I pressed the trim buttons on one side and then frantically on the other. I tapped on the batteries in the back. The plane kept turning, higher and farther away from us. "Should probably bring it back now," my father said. "I'm trying," I said. "Bring it back now," he said. "I can't." He grabbed the controls and pushed down on the levers. The plane was nearing the trees. He slammed the controls against his palm, wildly pressing buttons, then thrust it back in my hands. I did the only thing I could think of. I dropped the controls in the grass. The Champ RTF circled through the summer night, slowly, methodically. The distance between us grew until it was over the forest and then only a small, spinning shadow. Eventually, there was no way to tell it apart from a real airplane miles away or a bird drifting through the air. And then, as we stood there, it disappeared for good. My father and I jumped into the pickup and coasted down the roads behind the woods, but admitted that it would take too much luck to find it in the ditch. I walked through the forest, but since it was already dark, I would have missed the crash site if I passed by it. My father talked to the old man who owns the Christmas tree lot, and he promised to keep an eye out for it. My father even called Uncle David, who lived a mile down the valley, and asked, jokingly, but perhaps with some desperation, if there was a little yellow plane flying over his house. For weeks afterwards, in silent moments, my father would turn to me and say out loud what he was thinking, which was always, "Champ is gone, isn't he?" "Yes," I would say, "Champ is gone." We never figured out what happened. Maybe the plane had flown out of range of the receiver. Maybe the controls were broken. It might have been, and I gulp at the thought, operator error. The other part of the story is this. Because it was only a toy airplane, we laughed about it for a long time. There was a moment of stunned silence as it disappeared out of view, and then we roared the hardest we had all summer. For days, the very thought of it would crack us up. It became a long-standing joke. My father and I had something more to share between us, another thread connecting us in the time we had together. Champ went from being a model airplane to being a memory between a father and a son. Maybe that is the best fate for all things in life.